Hello everyone, Neenah here with Waffle Flower. I know some of you have already gotten your package with the Stitchables, so I wanted to get this die cutting tips video out as soon as possible. I've cut probably over 100 of them across 4 different machines to learn some lessons, and I'm here to share. If you're new to die cutting, I suggest that you watch our die cutting basics video that is linked here. Watch the video and then you'll understand all the terms I'm using in this video. Your first question might be what paper to use. I recommend 80-pound cardstock. All of our dies are designed for 65-pound to 80-pound cardstock. The bigger the number, the heavier the paper. You could cut 100 to 120-pound paper from these dies in simple shapes, but it will probably take some luck to be able to cut these stitchables from them. They're just too thick. And I prefer 80-pound paper over 65-pound paper because it just gives a little bit more pressure when die cutting and much steadier when stitching on later. My go-to cardstocks are Neenah Solar White for whites and Desert Storm for Kraft. For colored ones, I'm using our 80-pound pattern paper. There are 9 different pads to choose from now, with more coming for the holidays. The die cutting tips I'm sharing today apply to all the machines. We don't have all the tools I mentioned in this video in our store, but I will link to Amazon in the description below. The number one problem you'll run into is probably your die doesn't cut completely. First of all the Stitchables are in the category of intricate dies. Among the 4 machines I tested on, Gemini Junior is the only one that can cut them without any extra shim. Big Shot by Sizzix, Platinum 6 by Spellbinders, and Cutterbug by Cricut all required some layers of paper shim. This could be because my Gemini was a completely new machine and the other machines all have some degree of wear and tear. The more you use your machine, the looser the rollers will be. It's inevitable. We are working with the manufacturer for a solution for this, and I have the 3rd batch of samples on their way to me. I'll share more in detail when I have the product ready. All the consumer-grade desktop die cut machines available on the market today are roller-style machines. When you die cut, you'll send your sandwich through 2 hollow tubes. By design, you'll have less pressure in the middle. This is why adding some paper shim to the center of your die will help with your result. But you're also running the risk of damaging your machine by losing the 2 rollers too much that it won't be able to provide enough pressure to cut anything anymore. I did this to my first Gemini Junior, and that's why I got a new machine. It was a secondhand machine that never felt right in the first place. I forced my layers through with too much paper shim, so the machine doesn't work anymore. It took the very thick sandwich through very slowly with some strange sound like the motor is humming, nothing on fire, but after that, everything goes through, just nothing catches on anymore and nothing will get cut on it anymore. I was surprised when I get the new machine how well it cuts right out of the box. So be extremely careful when you're adding your paper shims. And I know some people add a few pieces of tape to add more pressure to the area. All of this, just be very careful with what you're doing. And again, we are working on a possible solution, and I can't wait to share them with you. So what should we do? I would suggest, before trying to add paper shims, try the following first. That is to simply rotate your die, place it in a different corner of your cutting plate, and run it through your die cut machine 2 to 3 times. Usually, this should do the trick. The user manual of the Gemini Junior says that you should put the metal shim on top of your paper with the die underneath it facing up. But I do not like how the die embosses the metal plate. So here it is the sandwich I use. From bottom up, the clear plate, the metal shim, the plastic shim, the magnetic sheet, the die facing up, paper, and the clear plate. With this sandwich, I can get clean cuts for smaller dies with just 1 run and 2 to 3 times for bigger and more intricate dies. If you're like me, started on die cutting with a Big Shot machine, this might feel a little awkward because we were told to put the die facing down on paper and then cut. But I did find, even with the Big Shot machine, the die cuts better when it's facing up, and it's also easier to see whether your die has completely cut through. If you're using a manual machine, roll it slowly will help. You're giving the blades more time to cut through the paper. Go back and forth will help. If you look from the side, the top cutting plate has warped a little. This is normal. It's also the nature of the roller style die cut machines. Some people might tell you to flip it over so that the machine will flatten it out. It is true for simple shapes, but don't do this on intricate dies. For intricate dies, you want to have as much contact as possible, so you will have the both ends up in the air a little when you're running through the machine. It does not hurt. So if you want to straighten it out, I do find just flip it back and run it through the machine without any die will help. One thing I also noticed is that for the stitchable borders, I get a much smoother finish if I place my die horizontally this way. If I place the die vertically through the machine, the paper warps. Also, use a few pieces of tape to hold your die in place is a great idea for precise positioning, but you must be careful removing the tapes, or you might tear your paper. You can use a lower tack tape like the purple tape, or just put the tape on the back of your hand a couple times to remove the extra stickiness. This will definitely help, but still, if you tear your paper, you could just cover it with your focal or some embellishments. This is where creativity begins. The stitchable squares, circles, and hearts all include two borders. One is 4¼ inches long and the other 5½ inches long. You can use this 5½ inch border horizontally by aligning the edge of your 4¼ card base to the marks on the base of the die. Both of the zigzag dies are 5½ inches long that you can use them vertically or horizontally on A2 cards. You can also combine the borders for some interesting patterns. And yes, you can cut more than one die at a time. Just remember to align them vertically so there is only one die going through your machine at all times. This is to avoid the cut lines competing with each other for pressure. Ideally, all the little pieces would just fall out, but in reality, you will probably have some pieces hanging in holes. In my case here, I have a little area on top of my pinking circle that wasn't completely cut to my satisfaction. They could probably be poked out with a Kraft pick or the tip of the needle, but this could be easily fixed if you run your dies through the machine one more time. The back of your paper should look like this, that you can see clearly every little hole is cut through. As I mentioned earlier, if you cut with your die blades facing up, it should be very easy to see. This will save you a lot of time poking the little pieces out. Just run it through one more time. I do highly recommend using our A2 piercing panel die to help you release the little pieces. You don't need to knit up with any holes. Just rub your fingers over the area to release the little pieces. Sometimes your die cut shape will stay in the die. You can release the paper by pushing through the releasing holes from the back of the die. The releasing holes are the ones that's only on the base of the die but do not have cut lines on them. They are very easy to identify when looking on the front of your die where you can see all the blades. For our pinking shapes, these are the ones right below the 3 decorative dots on each side. Gently poke through the releasing holes to release the paper and peel your die cut off. Easy, right? For those little dots that stays on the clear cutting plate, I just use a scrap of paper to scrape them off. Now how about these tiny little pieces stayed in the die? You can tap on the back to release most of them and poke the rest of them out with a craft pick. I do find this brush tool from Sizzix very helpful for removing the little pieces from the dies. I'm just brushing over the back of my die with a heavy hand. Spellbinders has this tuning one that has a brush head as well and also a craft pick. So if you don't have anything yet, this could be something to consider. I tried a teeth brush, but the bristles were too soft for this. If you have some hard bristle brushes, they might work too. However, I tried using the brush on the die cuts, but they do not come off as easily as I expected. The hard bristle also scratched my paper, so I wouldn't recommend using them this way. Our A2 piercing panel die makes it a lot easier. One thing I need to mention when you're sending your dies through your machine for the second or third time, you need to make sure there are no little pieces laying loosely on your cutting plate. They will create unwanted embossing lines on your cutouts. You can use a small vacuum to take them out. I will just show how I cut this pinking rectangle again to give you an idea. It is the biggest in our Stitchables line and supposedly the most difficult to cut. I've sent it through the Diecut machine with the pinking heart shape once. So now I'm rotating it 90 degrees and changed it to a different position on my cutting plate. It cuts pretty well this time. Rubbing on A2 piercing die to release the tiny little circles, I did find it quicker to finish poking the last few pieces out using the craft pick. One thing to remember is always make sure there's no leftover pieces in your die before you start a new cut. The little pieces might stop your die from cutting, and if you have a few of them stacked in there, it'll be very hard to remove. But if you do this every time you finish a die cut, you will always have a fresh die to start with. With all the little circles on your table, all you need is a vacuum cleaner to clean them all out. Now you've seen how easy it is to die cut the Stitchables. Let's talk about storage. Many of you know that we include magnetic sheets in our dies, but the magnetic sheets are so heavy, it ended up cost a lot to ship, and the packages are easier to break or damage during shipping. So we're only adding magnetic sheets to dies that's bigger than 3x4 and has more than 3 dies in the set. So none of the Stitchables come with magnetic sheets, but we do have magnetic boards sold in the set of 5. We call them magnetic boards because you can write on the front of it using an erasable pen, just like on a whiteboard. Each of the magnetic boards comes with a clear bag, so you can put coordinating stamp set in the front and put them all in the bag. But for me, like the holiday shapes, I didn't even take the bag out because it's just so easy to put them on and put them off. You'll need 2 for all the Stitchable Borders, 2 for the Stitchable Pinking Shapes, and 1 for the Stitchable Holiday Shapes. So a 5-pack of the magnetic boards is all you need for your Stitchables. Then something else you might want to invest is a pack of the Cloud Storage XL pockets. There is a divider in the pockets, so 1 for all the 4 pinking shapes, 1 for all the borders, so for the back of my 3rd pocket, I'll put my beloved A2 piercing die in this, or this wonderful stitched sentiments stamp set. I know they're temporarily sold out on our website, but we're expecting a big shipment coming in about 2 weeks. Sign up for the notification on the product page, and you'll be the first to be notified. I hope today's video is helpful when you start playing with your Stitchables. We do have more videos coming, so subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button so you can know as soon as the video goes live. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye!